and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and today I'm a humid hurricane season boy.
Wait, this is your fault?
Yeah, I was experimenting with weather.
How could you?
Stupid.
Did you never watch the PSAs?
So you're the one who got the Chinese weather control satellite.
And yeah. I thought it'd be, okay, fine, but never.
Geostorm. Geostorm.
And we have a hurricane off the coast of Baja California, which Michael tells me has been downgraded to a hurricane. So I can't even
Downgraded to a tropical storm.
Oh yeah, that. I can't even get that right.
Those things. Trevor, who are you?
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub. Today I'm a cozy rainy boy.
Ooh, yeah.
And also I took a lot of my THC tincture last night, so I slept like the dead.
Woke up like the dead.
Yeah, woke up like the dead, but I'm here and I'm basically back to normal.
Better than dead.
sleepy.
This is the morning where almost all of us overslept, and it is definitely morning of the living dead around this.
Not for
living
Michael.
room.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a chaser, and I didn't oversleep today. I feel great. This is a very unusual space to be in, but I mean, I don't know. I get to play soccer in the rain last night. How rare is that in Southern
Because
California?
it's the humidity. It's like we've playing soccer in warm, wet wool.
No, it got cooler. It's been 100 degrees every day, except for last night. It was 72.
It reached 112 in some areas around here. 112 up near you, Michael.
Look,
Yeah. I felt it.
I said I'm sorry.
My name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living in sunny Hollywood, and today I am once again a very lumpy-headed lumphead boy.
No.
I keep staring in the mirror. For those of you I haven't told, I was in a car accident a couple weeks back, and I have a lump on my head, and I keep waking up every morning looking in the mirror thinking, today's the day it's gone. And today I woke up and it's bigger. It's just getting bigger to spite me.
Maybe it's
Well,
that. Maybe
if it
it's
makes
that.
you feel any better, which this probably won't, I got kicked in the shins when I was playing soccer the one time I forgot to wear my shin guards, and that lump lasted for 3 months.
I hate you. Why would you tell me that?
Don, don't think of it so much as a bump that won't go away as an antenna that's trying to emerge.
Yes, you can be Bender from Futurama.
I was gonna say, I think if it keeps getting bigger, that's just the freshly healed Don growing out of your head, and you're just gonna get to burst out of it at a certain point.
dear.
where
It's going to start talking to me.
Cocoon style.
Oh dear.
So this thing that we do every Saturday.
Welcome to the
what is it?
podcast.
Where are we here?
Now with 25% more lumps.
I don't know, Patreon corner. It's a thing. We
yeah.
have. I think the last cutting room floor is just, I don't know, because it's me talking about the mall for a large portion of it, and I just was tickled listening to that. It was
And you
very
are
fun.
rarely tickled listening to the sound of your own voice.
Yeah, I normally gentle listener.
He hates it.
I don't really like listening to the podcast because I
He'll hear
don't like
himself.
hearing the sound of my own voice, and I just kind of get in my head about it. Because it's my voice in my head, and then my inner voice critiquing that voice.
There's a lot of head
There's
voices.
so many
Couple off,
voices.
Like when you listen to your voice, it doesn't sound the same as the voice you hear when you talk.
That's true. That's very true.
So he's like, who's that guy who's fucking up?
For anybody who doesn't know, the Cutting Room Floor is a special segment that we release only to our Patreon supporters, and it's basically things that get cut out of the show that are still kind of fun or interesting, but don't necessarily make for a good episode.
It is very much the big fat gay podcast uncensored.
And unedited, I will say. To save myself the hassle, I do not edit those at all. So gaps, pauses, ums, ahs, all that good stuff.
Is that
you get
something
the raw.
we really want to be including on the pitch?
No, because some people genuinely are like, no, I want the real thing. So there you go. That's the real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to hear us stutter.
No, it would drive me crazy if I had to edit those two.
No,
That's
if
the
you
ease
had
of
to
it.
edit the stuff you don't edit, that's
Yeah, exactly.
ridiculous.
That's
Yeah.
insane. That's psychotic. So we also are planning a couple cool Patreon mini-sodes. Trevor and I are going to do one about sandwiches. Don, Trevor, and I are going to do one about role-playing games, sort of cross-body type. So playing a role-playing character that's not your own body type, which I'm excited about because one of my first characters ever was a fat man. So anyway, we got lots of fun stuff planned for Patreon. Please support us there. We use the money purely to pay our editors, whether it's me or somebody else helping to edit the show. And now on to the show. Let's do it. We have a show this week.
It's pop culture, baby. It's, it's not as, I feel like pretty neutral this week.
This is good, mostly good
pretty good.
stuff. Once again, hitting it out of the park is Teen Vogue.
I love Teen Vogue so much.
So anyway, an article in Teen Vogue by Brittany McNamara is super cool because it focuses on largely on an influencer named Alana Manning, who is sort of responding to a TikTok trend, which is basically what I eat in a day. And a lot of it, the original version of the trend is like, thin, often models saying like, here's what I eat, but here's what I don't eat. Or like, here's how I eat when I choose to eat. Or like, basically praising health culture.
This is my lunch, a single ice cube with a sprig of rosemary frozen inside.
You fat whore.
It's my splurge day.
But anyway, plus size influencers and just people on Instagram and TikTok are sort of reclaiming that and saying like, here's what I eat in a day. And it's just normal food. It's just... the article goes into a lot of detail, but basically it's like we deserve to eat 3 meals a day. Like that's not too much to ask.
And it's interesting that they were talking about like being accused of lying when they show what they eat normally.
That's not what you normally eat. That's not it.
It's interesting because like I remember that happened to me when I went to a nutritionist and like I was supposed to journal what I eat, and she's like, "Well, clearly you're omitting like snacks or
You must be lying.
Yeah, and I'm like, sorry, I was
win.
annoyed hearing these poor people literally filming what they're eating and still being accused of lying.
But the flip side is that she's getting, in this particular case, she's getting a lot of responses from people basically writing her saying, this is heartbreaking. Somebody wrote her, I think more than one person said, like, thank you so much for posting this. It reminded me to eat today.
Oh, wow.
Like, and can you imagine the degree of
detachment?
Not detachment, but like just the relationship you must have to have with food and your own body that you are forgetting to eat or feel like you can't eat.
Yeah. You'd be surprised. There are a lot of people who forget to eat. They just get busy.
I'm not surprised. I'm just saying it's tragic. Like that's really, really sad.
I can be like that when I'm working on something that I'm really enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
I can do that, and it'll be like, oh, I need to eat I'll have breakfast at like 1 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I'll have some gummy bears because I just need sugar to keep going, and then I can have a real meal.
And your friends.
Anyway, this is super cool, and it's to the degree that apparently if you search the hashtag,
hashtag what I eat in a day.
Yeah, if you look up that hashtag, you get a mixture of both the typical like thin Instagram models, TikTok models, and the plus size influencers are sort of reclaiming it and saying, actually, no, this can be anything, and we don't need to shame people for eating normal food. And it's not. It's like, oh, I had sushi, but I also had Zaxby's chicken and like literally whatever it is that you have. It's just food. It's just food, and we can all eat food and appreciate food and.
Yeah. No, Michael, that's not allowed. I have very strong opinions about what people I've only met through an app do in their life, and they should listen to me about it.
More importantly, they should obey me.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so that, I don't know. It's good stuff. I think that's a purely good thing. Even though she got some flack, she's like, yeah, I just blocked these people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's all you really need to do. I mean, if you choose to engage, you can, but I certainly wouldn't expect it of somebody.
I feel like that's a skill set that younger people have that I haven't developed yet. Like I don't have that sort of thick skin yet. When I get attacked online, it still stings.
Okay, but hold on.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. I was freed when I thought about this. Someone who hates you so much that they're forced to spend time and put time and energy into thinking about you and feeling about like there's so much like they're basically your fan.
Yeah.
They engage with you in a way.
What's the difference between fan and hater if not,
It's the same amount of energy. Well, no, but it's like the same amount of effort and energy. And it's like, oh my God, you're basically, because like you're doing what a fan would do, except it's a negative.
They're obsessed
but it's
with
like,
me.
No,
and it's driving them crazy.
I love, so the difference between a fan and a hater is word choice.
I mean, kind of. And it's just, but like, a fan is energized by that positively.
I love that.
And it's
That's
like
great.
they're causing more harm to themselves putting this time into like, I'm just so mad I have to, I don't know. I think my very low level, just like, oh my God, they're obsessed with me. And just like, it's amusing. I don't know, to me, just think of, when I had that realization, I was like, oh my God, they're basically fans in a bizarre way.
Well, what else would a person be a fan of? Theater and theater productions.
Oh man, this spoke to me.
Segue. Well, that was smooth.
I can do things too.
No, this article spoke to me because I've spent so many years in live theater.
Well, this cracked me up too because I
Yeah.
had suggested this as a mini-sode for you and I, Dan.
Yeah.
Because both of us have made these observations in the past.
Absolutely. I mean,
know?
my concern at the time was like, who goes to live theater these days in LA? But
So
We have an art. Oh, go.
we should set up what we're talking about before we start talking about it. From Onstage Blog, title of the article is "We Need to Talk About Fat Men in Theater."
This was by
Tom Heald or Tom Heald.
Healed.
Dyslexia.
Healed.
And it's what it sounds like. So you, take it away. You guys have been talking about fat men in theater and needing to see more of
He
them.
does a deep dive into fat men in theater, and he stakes out the territory immediately by saying, "Look, I know that." Trans people in theater and, plus size women in theater. Like there's a lot of people who should be on stage and aren't be on stage. But he says the difference is people are talking about that. No one's talking about fat men in theater. And so he is. And so that's what this article is. And he kind of lays down some rules for, like, in some cases, yes, the role calls for the Adonis-like body because that's what the character is representing.
Like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, one of the things the article goes into is that there are still like acceptable roles for fat men to be cast into. Usually like a sort of the reluctant lead role or the unexpected lead role.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah. And everyone's sort of always doubting them along the way.
Yep. And the acceptable fat sidekick. Imagine any stage role played by Josh Gad. Like, and often those are because like in the, what do you call it? Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Right. Like Josh Gad was the first person to play the sidekick role. And he did such a kick-ass job that even though the role doesn't need to be fat, it's sort of been given to fat actors ever since then, traditionally. You could say the same thing about Tevye in, Fiddler on the Roof. Like it doesn't need to be a fat role, but because that first person was so good in the role, it becomes a legacy fat role.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Now I'm thinking about like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I want Fat Frankenfurter.
You could do Frankenfurter.
I'm specifically just imagining, like, for some reason, David Harbour as Frankenfurter.
Oh, he could kill it. He'd
That
be
would
great for that.
Wild. That would be insane.
You're welcome, Broadway. I will take my payment in the form of being able to fit in whatever theater seats the theater is.
Well, that takes us clumsily with no segue whatsoever.
Oh, I guess it does. I wasn't even trying to do that. Scooty, hear my cry. It's Fat Watch.
Have you named the eagle Scooty?
Well, no, this
Scooty from Bigger Vegas.
Yeah, it's my
the
Bigger
scooter.
Vegas scooter. It makes that sound
Flying
as it
through the
flies.
air.
Oh, I see. The scooter makes the sound of an eagle's cry.
To save all of us from
Walking.
anti-fat hate.
Yes. So I found out about this from Jay Bay, who we talked about in our Bigger Vegas Live episode, who I think a lot of you are following now because she's partnered with a new app called Friendly Like Me, which is
Awesome.
awesome and filling a void left by Algo.
Oh, yeah.
Algo was an
I
app
remember
that
We talked
was
about that.
trying to launch a while ago, and it was going to be like Yelp for how fat friendly and accessible a place is. And Friendly Like Me is the same thing, focusing on how accessible it is to fat people who use mobility aids. And you can kind of like, when you create your profile, talk about what your needs are. And then when you review a place, you kind of rate the different aspects of it.
I think this is awesome because, I mean, if you go to their website, you can see like right off the bat, they're identifying the key problem, which is that if you want to go to a place, you oftentimes have no real way of figuring out if that place is going to be accommodating or decent to go to. I'm thinking specifically of restaurants, but this applies across the board.
Well, I was going to say the first thing I do if we make a reservation at a new restaurant on Open Table is I try to look at the photos of the seating.
Yep. I go to Google every time and see like, okay, if I haven't been there before, what are their chairs like? Sometimes they change. So like a lot of times the photos are old. So even if that's the case, like you might like, and so the great thing about this app, because I downloaded it and checked it out, it looks very clean and modern. And you can opt into notifications if a restaurant or place location decides to change their accommodations in response to the app.
Oh.
I love that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
That's very smart.
So they're not forever branded, and they have incentive to change.
I mean, it's an opt-in thing, and of course, it's all user-driven, so it requires you to kind of participate and leave reviews, and then maybe report back. But I'm all for it, honestly. Like, I would love to help create a space like that. That's why I downloaded it, because I already in my head make reviews for myself when I go to a place. Like, I have to try and keep a mental checklist of, okay, that place was okay, this place had too many stairs, whatever, whether or not it's me and another fat person going there or just me.
I actually downloaded the app this morning, but I couldn't get it to
Remind us what the name of the app is.
Friendly Like Me.
Friendly Like Me. Okay.
I love this because I think it's so great to be able to, like, as a fat person, be like, hey now, this works. This doesn't work. Especially just because, like, there's a lot of places where so many aspects of it are good, and then other aspects are not. Usually, it's like,
Aspects of a restaurant.
the restaurant, like the seating could be good,
Right.
It could have good seats, good chairs, spacious, but then it could have a very claustrophobic bathroom or something.
Right, and I like that you can leave a review and basically check off which
Yes.
things it does or doesn't have, and then because some of those things might work for other people, like for instance, you might not be sitting in a booth yourself, even if it has a movable table, but other people, if they can move the table at the booth, they might be able to.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to have that available. I think
I just love the granular nature of booth with movable chair, booth without or movable table.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think this is a fantastic, not just because it is what it is, but it also, like, a lot of what we've talked about is a lack of empowerment, like a lack of the ability to actually do something, say something, fight back, whatever, in a meaningful way. This puts the power in your hands. Like, this is built by the people for the people, and all you have to do is participate and help build it. And like, that is liberating unto itself. Like, if you help create spaces where people have information, you are part of the solution.
Like, I think the best thing about crowdsourcing is because, like, as a fat person, trying to speak to all the different needs of other fat people can be difficult, because I had an experience recently where I went with some fat friends to dinner, and they're like, oh, the place is really great. It's really, spacious seating. And it was sort of, because they had big booths and you could move the table, but I was not in the booth because we were a large group, and they only had those little awful metal chairs.
Oh, I hate those things.
And just, it sucked. And it was like accessible in some ways, but not others, and to some people, but not others. And I think the more people that are able to take part in Friendly Like Me, the more we can really just make things super cool. And I think if you see someone who has like similar needs to you, I think you might be able to click their profile and then see the reviews and see places that align with your needs.
Yeah, and I'll sort of put the caveat out there that I think this is still very grassroots.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go on expecting a lot of recommendations up front. I would go on with the intention of posting your own reviews.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that will help build the
You'll
overall.
be getting it on the ground floor, helping build the community from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. All
Which
right.
is a good thing. So
I think it's time.
On with our no segue episode.
So people were asking if we were going to talk about the whale,
Yeah.
which not yet. The answer is not yet, listener.
Not until we have something to talk about.
Aubrey Gordon had a little kind of Twitter thread talking about the whale and fat people's reaction to how the whale is being received after Venice, that I think really kind of encapsulates a lot of my feelings. And I think it's supposed to come out maybe this December. So like, we'll talk about it when we have a trailer.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it, but probably not.
I would also say that what I like about the Aubrey Gordon piece is that she explains how can you hate this movie if you haven't even seen it? And she does a brilliant job of explaining exactly how you can hate something and not see it.
Yes.
So anyway, that's not what we're talking about
No.
today.
In the discussion of all of this, Caleb Luna, Dr. Caleb Luna, we talked about their book of poetry as a tip a while back, was saying, I don't want to talk about someone in a fat suit in a movie I don't want to see. I want to highlight actors and shows with positive fat portrayals. I want to, spotlight people who are doing great work, whose work makes me happy. And I was like, oh, that sounds much more fun
Yeah.
than
a trip to hell?
than a trip
Yeah.
to hell.
This is the big fat gay book report.
Yes. So we all kind of picked a fat hero to talk about and why they are a fat hero, and like
Not necessarily actor,
Yeah.
but maybe.
Well, and when we started talking about this, the first person that came to mind for me was Winston Churchill, right?
Yeah.
Because Winston Churchill is, for those of you who don't know who he is, he was the Prime Minister of England during during World War II. He did not actually his term as Prime Minister did not make it all the way to the end of World War II, but his efforts and his military acumen and his political acumen and all that stuff really did change the world that we live in today.
And he was fat.
And he was fat. And it's funny because, like, when they make movies about his life, like they'll stick Gary Oldman in a fat suit.
Or John Lithgow in a fat suit.
Or John Lithgow in a
In
fat
a-
suit in lots of things.
At the same time.
It's a crowded fat suit.
But like, I feel like he's an example of one of these people that like his accomplishments were so powerful that I feel like mainstream society sort of takes away his fatness. They sort of see him as just
gloss
being the sort
over
of
it.
Yeah, it's just an extra detail that doesn't get mentioned.
It's funny because it's like they gloss over it, but it also becomes this like mythical aspect of him where it's like he wasn't fat, he was larger than his own being.
Larger than
Yes.
life.
He
Yeah.
is like
Well,
he
and
was 50 stories tall.
Well, and I think of the contrast between that and a woman who is fat and who has great accomplishments. I don't think she ever gets to ditch the mantle of fat woman.
Look at Oprah. I don't think her identity can be separated from her fatness, even though her body has been all over the spectrum.
Yeah, and you could make the argument that, well, she talked about that as a public figure, her fatness, but I think she had to because she was a woman
Well,
who was
and she
fat.
was being talked about.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's part of the being in the public. But
Well, and being a woman,
Yeah.
the weight, your weight is under scrutiny, and
yeah. So Winston Churchill, was there in your research? I'm curious because I watched the biopic with Gary Oldman, and this was before our podcast, but it was still at the time it was just like a giant sigh of like. And everybody's going to be talking about like how great the makeup was in the fat suit and blah blah blah. But was there anything about Winston that maybe we wouldn't have seen or heard about that you thought was particularly interesting?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is that not only is he, an undeniably fat man when he was the prime minister, but he was also not ashamed of his body to the point where he was a nudist who hung out and had political and war planning sessions from his bathtub.
I think that's in The Queen, right?
It's
I think
in
there's
many
a-
movies. It's a huge aspect of how he worked.
Yeah.
Apparently, like his staff just took it for granted when a crisis hit, he was going to be naked in the tub, thinking about it.
that's where I hide.
And all of them had to be used to dealing with a large, fat, naked man in a bathtub if they were going to work in the private residence.
Man, what a job to have!
Yeah. I don't know.
I hear there's a crisis, Winston. It's not a crisis.
I heard that bombs were being dropped. Let's go to the bathroom.
I don't know. I don't know if that was necessarily relieved by some of the young women in his employ.
Oh dear, yeah.
Yeah,
way,
that's fair.
but,
That's fair.
Chasers. I don't know. Time travel, I guess. Go.
Yep.
Go beyond.
That's a fanfic for sure.
That's a big fat gay fanfic only on Patreon.
I'm writing that down.
But the fact that, he was so unabashedly who he was and unashamed of it and, both body and brain. Like I admire the man.
Nice, nice.
I think maybe I won't go next because I feel like it's the same continent and I feel like a similar kind of vibe in terms of like unapologetic. I was thinking of Don French from The Vicar of Dibley, who longtime fat comedian whose weight has fluctuated over the years and has always kind of been in the spotlight for that.
Yeah.
And she's been very public about like not really wanting to lose weight, about being very comfortable with being very comfortable in her body, liking her body.
Dawn French. Wow.
And like I found this, I was like looking at like, okay, like what because I mean, she's British, so like the UK tabloids
Are vicious.
are
yeah.
vicious. And there was this thing from LA Times. The year is 1994. A little show called Friends is hitting American televisions. Although I think that might be later. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean, okay, so the article title is Fashionably Fat. Breton stumps for the plump. Trends.
What?
Dawn French's biggest beautiful message seems to be catching on.
Is this the Sun?
No, LA Times.
LA Times?
Magazines and late night television have begun featuring voluptuous women in sexy poses. But not everyone is convinced.
It's a sad day when I confuse the LA Times with the Sun.
Yeah.
London. Forget the wispy waif, the sylph-like child woman, the bag of bones on the catwalk.
Stop it!
Oh my God.
Fear of fat is no longer fashionable in Britain. Home of Twiggy in the
Oh
60s.
wow. They really
and-
thought they were claiming this.
And the waif Kate Middleton in the 90s.
Oh, LA
And this kind of
Times.
goes on.
So naive.
And I mean, French, I think, is like, so French says in the article, big women are sexier than the thin ones. We pump more estrogen, have higher sex drives, and fantasize more. Being big is a sign of fertility, of voluptuous sensuality, a love of life. Which, that article's kind of all over the place. It is.
That sounds like a wild read.
It almost sounds like kind of like Fat Admirer AI.
Are you sure that was
dream.
LA Times and not the LA Times or something?
Yeah.
It's LA Times.
It's it says so much about Los Angeles in the 90s, doesn't it? It's just like how hyper-conscious body was.
Yeah.
But I mean, this scrutiny is throughout her career, throughout her, ups and downs of weight loss. She talks about the only time really kind of having like really felt like she needed to lose weight was before her wedding. And then her husband being like, who are you doing this for? And her realizing that like, oh, like my husband likes me at any size and like actually thinks, fat is hot. And I just love her work. Like, I mean, Vicar of Dibley is one of my favorite
It's such a good
all-time
show.
shows. I think you and Michael should watch it.
I've seen a little tiny bit of it. I haven't watched the whole thing.
And for those of you who have not seen Murder on the Nile, Dawn French is back with her old comedy partner, what's her name?
Jennifer
Saunders.
Yes.
Saunders, yeah.
And the two of them, I mean, it's a very small role, and it's kind of a straight person role. I mean, comedically speaking.
Yeah.
But the two of them are lovely together.
Oh, of course they are.
Lovely together.
I mean, check them out on French and Saunders. But what I love about the Vicar of Dibley is there is so much kind of like 30 Rock food humor where it's just like her character loves food and it is like ridiculous jokes about like, oh my God, she has so much chocolate. But it's like not because she's fat. It's just like because of her character, like just loving food and it's larger than life. And it's like the type of like where now, like I feel like people wouldn't write that, but they'd be like, oh, well, if it's a thin girl, we can write this kind of joke.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because in the chocolate, because she's all about chocolate as an emotional crutch.
Yes.
But if the character were portrayed by a thin actor, you wouldn't change anything, and it would
Yeah.
just be a thin
would
character
still
who
work.
obsesses about chocolate
Yeah,
for
and that's
emotional
sort
reasons.
of our
Yeah.
our
And it's
litmus
not
test.
a constant through line. It's
Yeah,
just a
it's
character
something that comes
feature.
up, but it's a fun.
Yeah, they
like
depend
there's
on
a point where she gets a like full size like grocery store refrigerator freezer for her ice cream, and she just kind of goes and she's like thinking, and then she gets her ice cream and then she like whispers in the fridge like "love you," and it's just so just lovely, and there's so much physical humor. I love it, and I love that, especially in recent years, Dawn French's weight has fluctuated, and she's been open about being like, yeah, I had health issues, and the doctor said if I lost weight, they'd be able to do whatever surgery
I'd
easier.
live forever.
And people were praising her for finally losing that weight after being the totem promoting obesity. There's a very ridiculous article that I'll share of a British dietitian, so just let that sink in, and she's such a waspy like she just sounds terrible from her name because it's like super British. And it's like, oh man, this is not going to be a good time.
Terramundia High Market Smith.
Yes.
Title of the show.
But, and like, talking about,
Can you spell that?
Spell it a lot.
she talks about, like kind of, this was 2020. It's like pandemic times, gaining weight back and being like, I'm fine. I'm happy, And also when being pressed about her weight loss, talking about missing being fat for swimming.
Oh.
Because she's like, it's harder to swim and I can't swim in the cold anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
She talks about like, having the weight almost being like this built-in wetsuit.
Love it.
Yeah.
And just that she's so open about it and under such scrutiny and just kind of rolls with the punches and continues to do so.
For 30 years.
Yeah.
She's been doing that.
I mean,
that's amazing.
if you're a British fat woman, I mean, oh my gosh. Respect.
And just so lovely, so lovely, so funny. Great lady. She's liked some of my tweets.
Really?
Yeah.
Trevor. She's a fan.
Yeah.
And I'm married to Trevor, so she liked my husband's tweets.
That's right.
And I think actually, so she's liked my tweets, and I think 2 of 4 of the Sex and the City cast have liked tweets of mine.
Oh,
Really?
Yes.
Trevor, you didn't tell us you were so famous.
I know. They like my tweets.
So modest.
But yeah, love Don French. Michael, it's Michael Wheeler. Will you
All
please
right.
come give your book report to the class?
Yes, ma'am. So I had to try and figure out who I was going to talk about because my ability to sit down and just think of a person is zero. But the first one I went to is, of course, I'm a filmmaker, so it's like, oh, well, Hitchcock. And I like a lot of Hitchcock movies, but he's not really a hero of mine. I respect his work. He didn't really inspire me that much. But Dan actually, off the cuff, suggested Orson Welles, and that struck a note for sure. Because, as a young filmmaker watching Citizen Kane and then going to see a SAG series, a screening series of a lot of Orson Welles movies, including ones that most people haven't seen. There's a lot of old movies that either were unfinished or that he did that went nowhere because after he made Citizen Kane at 26 years old, which is, it's widely considered to be the greatest movie of all time. And he could not work in Hollywood after that. I mean, we respect the movie now, but at the time, he was eviscerated. And of course, making fun of William Randolph Hearst.
well, because he made fun of the
The
wealthiest.
king of media at the
Yeah,
time. It
yeah.
would be like, well, anyway, so he struggled a lot in his career and, continued to make movies and continued to be influential despite it all. And by the end of his career, when Citizen Kane was being recognized and a lot of his other work as well, all people really wanted to talk about was how fat he was.
Yeah.
And I found some very interesting resources about this because for me, like talking about his accomplishments first, Citizen Kane is obviously a masterpiece, but for a young filmmaker to watch something like that and go, oh my God, he was 26. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
Like
Tick,
if you,
tick, Michael.
holy shit. Like, you really, and then you just have to accept how much of a goddamn genius he was. As he got older, he got fatter, and apparently he fluctuated weight basically throughout his entire childhood and growing up. And, when he was, there's so many fun anecdotes. Like when he was doing Citizen Kane, he was 26, he was tall, he was lean, and they had to put on basically a fat suit and fat makeup for when he plays older. So he plays over the course of, I think, 50 years at a 26-year-old, kid, basically. And so when he's playing older Kane, he's wearing a fat suit, and he liked going to lunch wearing the fat suit and basically making jokes about how much he was eating. And he was very vocal about that. And then as he got older, critics couldn't, there's so many quotes. I kind of want to read. Barbara Leeming was apparently a friend of Orson Welles, but also has done a lot of very widely accepted biographies, including an official biography about Orson Welles. And I kind of just want to read this page. She has a chapter about his weight and how he felt about his own weight, but how other people talked about it. And this is so relatable because this came out in 1985, but of course, Orson Welles was born in the early 20th century. Orson, his weight, this is the inescapable issue. People want to talk about it far more than they do about who wrote Citizen Kane or why Orson Welles could not work in Hollywood or what happened to The Other Side of the Wind, a movie that he made. How did you get so fucking fat? Commercial director Harry Hamburg once asked, to which Orson glibly replied that having created works of art when he was a young man, he'd finally decided to make himself into a work of art.
Love it. Love it.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, but he's so witty and pithy and amazing. But the thing is, you know,
And that's sort of like take no shit nor prisoners. I love that attitude.
oh, it's great. I mean, but the thing is, and later in the biography, just a few pages later, she talks about having had a conversation with him at lunch where he really was bothered by this. I mean, how can you not be?
Yeah.
You know, working on set one time, and I think a fellow actor, maybe the director, was, you know, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically, he made a joke. Orson did, and then, you know, it was just a, you know, friendly hi hello kind of like, oh, you came from so and so was in Florida, and then the guy just immediately came back with a fat joke, just kind of off the cuff out of nowhere, and Orson was like, that, you know, I played enough in the moment, but that hurt, like that was unnecessary. It was, and it's so, and in writing this, Barbara said that Orson was the one who sort of came up with the term fat joke in his own circle, at least. Like that wasn't a thing. He would just call all of these jokes about his weight fat jokes. That's just all they are. They're fat jokes. And they were having lunch together, and he was talking about surgery, like, you know, going to some British doctor, we're back to Britain again, and talking about basically having your fat cut off of your body, which was a thing back then, and people did it. Probably still a thing. I don't really know, and I don't care to know. But it was kind of incredible seeing him dealing with the exact same issues that we kind of associate with modern Hollywood. And he wasn't even allowed to work in Hollywood, but this is still the judgment that he was getting at the time, and it followed him to his dying day. Like that, as an older, in fact, all of the jokes that you see in any kind of modern media, Family Guy, Simpsons, it's always eating. It's always him working for food. You know, he did commercials later in life, some of which
the
were
peas
food.
commercial, the frozen peas commercial keeps coming up.
Yeah, and you gotta hate that one of the most legendary filmmakers of all time, who made probably the most influential masterpiece film of all time, is ultimately harried by his weight. And for the last half of his career, that's all that people talked about.
Yeah.
And so I want to bring it back to his massive, massive talent and his flexibility as a director, but not just a director, as a writer, as an auteur, as an actor.
Yeah.
Just as a conceptual artist, the War of the Worlds radio broadcast was absolutely unique at its time. Like, that was amazing.
He caused a panic.
Well, I love that you call it conceptual art, because it's kind of what it, that's the right name for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just absolute legend. And I think it's very humanizing to know that he struggled with the identical issues that we recognize and identify today. It hasn't really changed, at least in terms of how, you know, anti-fat people treat fat people. And it's a shame, because he was an absolute legend and still is. And I really, really respect and admire him. And also a teaser for our mini-sode with Don and Trevor, one of my first D&D characters, who was a fat man, the art that I used was a picture of Orson Welles.
Oh, okay.
So there's a little tie-in to the beginning of the episode.
Well, this is going to be short and sweet, and I'm going to need a little bit of Michael's Star Wars expertise.
Okay.
So the person I've chosen, unsurprisingly for everybody in this room, is Greg Grunberg.
Oh, shock and surprise.
So if you don't know who Greg Grunberg is an American film and television actor. You might know him as Eric Weiss in Alias, or Matt Parkman in Heroes. And then he did a number of the Star Wars roles. He was also in A Star is Born, and he's this really good-looking, chubby actor.
He's in anything J.J. Abrams has produced.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams has him in his stable. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you're wondering who he is in Star Wars, in the modern Star Wars, contemporary Star Wars?
Disney Star Wars.
Disney Star Wars.
There you go.
Okay. So tell me what you think about this, Michael. So he sort of recalls Luke's buddy Porkins in the fight at the Death Star.
Yeah, he's an X-Wing pilot.
And he's an X-Wing. And this is in episode 4. I think.
The original.
Yeah, the original. Yeah, A New Hope. And I mean, I don't know. Am I wrong to make that association?
No, I mean, Porkins was... He got blown out of proportion, so to speak, because he's on screen for like a grand total of 15 seconds.
Yeah, he got blown out of the
Something
sky
like
too.
that.
Yeah,
he basically is just there to be, you know, a fat joke and then die. because very few of the other pilots get names. A lot of them are just their
Red one.
signal, their call signal.
Yeah.
He gets Porkins because Porkins is funny because he's fat, and then he dies.
And
that's basically.
And we made the joke. Isn't that great? So, but I think unlike this,
I was going to say like, well, come on, they wouldn't necessarily name it that way. They're like, no, wait,
It's
they
George
named
Lucas.
this squid alien Mon Calamari.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you're
it's
right.
George Lucas.
Yeah.
He's not that clever.
he's not that clever. But I love this. I don't know. I think of it as a callback to episode 4, but in this case, so Greg Grunberg is playing this X-wing fighter, and he's fat, and he's in that that orange suit, and nobody's calling him Porkins.
Yeah.
and he's an actual character, and
He gets lines.
he gets lines,
real lines.
and a name that's not a body descriptor or an insult or
What
a slur.
is the name?
Temmin Snap Wexley.
Oh, that's a cool name. Snap.
Snap is his, that's in quotes, his AKA. Anyway, but what I love about that is in any role he portrays, it's never about, and I don't know if this is because he wouldn't take it or they don't do it to him, but the character is never just a walking fat joke.
Mm-hmm.
It's never about, we need a fat actor, we'll get this guy.
Well, I very much respect and admire Greg Grunberg, and I think it might have something to do with his choice of roles because I don't associate him with fat joke roles, and I suspect he's been offered plenty.
I don't know because he never takes them or they never think of him for it.
Well, so his brother,
Yeah.
I feel like is the one who takes a lot of those roles.
Oh, I didn't even
Where
know
it's
he had an acting
yeah,
He
brother.
does. He does.
who's also fat, and I feel like is very frequently he's the guy they call the Grunberg they call when they need a.
Is his name
fat
Fred
children.
Porkins Grunberg?
Yeah, really.
His name was Porkins, really?
Yeah.
His name was Porkins.
damn it.
Not the brother, the character in Star Wars.
Brad Grunberg, who,
Brad,
if I show
okay.
you a picture,
Yes.
Oh, he's Greg
see.
Grunberg,
Let's
but
see.
fatter.
Let's
yeah,
a very fine actor in his own right. I don't think he's had Greg Grunberg's fame, but again, that could be the handsomeness factor.
Yeah, and I mean, Greg Grunberg is sort of the Hollywood fat, right? He's sort
Yeah.
of quote unquote acceptably fat.
Well, but what's interesting is let's compare him to the other fat lead actor. Let's say Kevin James, King of Queens, or Jackie Gleason, or John Goodman. Greg Grunberg is so much prettier than any of them. Like he
is handsome.
he's
straight
very
up
handsome.
He's
On the-
conventionally handsome.
he's more than handsome. He's
He's conventionally handsome.
Anyway, do we have a tip for the week?
we do. We're bringing it
What a
back
shock.
to. I mean, this isn't really a Patreon thing. This is a podcast thing. We're going to be doing our Zoom self-care thing. People are really excited about it.
Yeah.
Why don't you say more about self-care?
So, different fat life things that come up. I'm going to show some skincare products I use. I'm going to show, stuff we've talked about, but I want to show it and also just kind of talk about how I use different things.
And open the door to listeners and
Yes.
people to participate and share their tips as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Or if they're to talk about I'm having this issue, what do y'all do?
And it's sort of more roundtable. It's not just
Yes.
about us talking to people.
No. Sharing tips, getting tips, generating tips, because maybe there's something
Coming up with
someone
solutions,
brings and we
brainstorming.
yeah.
Do we have a time and place for this?
It's going to be, I think it's either going to be at the start of October or the end of October, just because of our
Schedules.
our personal schedules.
An idea that we're batting around for the actual time,
Yes.
which we haven't settled on, we want to put it out there just to get some responses for it, would be around noon Pacific Standard Time on a Sunday. And
Yes.
hopefully that would run the gamut of availability for people. It would be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in America. If that works, we've gotten a handful of responses, all from people on the East Coast.
Yes.
So if people from other parts of the world want to chime in and say whether or not that would work, let us know.
Yeah, this would be 8 or 9 p.m. for Europe.
So yeah, let us know. That seems like a pretty decent time for it. And that'll be sometime in October. We're still locking down specifics, but wanted to put it out there because I think it's going to be a really good time.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm leaning towards earlier October because I think it, on a Sunday, if people have Halloween parties, this would be around Halloween, it would be Saturday night. And so Sunday morning might not be as doable. And also earlier in October is sooner to now, and I'm excited for it.
Yes, me too. And a lot of people are. So thank you for chiming in and letting us know you're excited and your time zone. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to show off things on camera. I mean,
You said, what exactly
Trevor.
is this happening?
I don't know.
That's what we call a Patreon.
Is he going to
super
actually be
star.
applying the creams on camera?
No, that's my job. That's my job.
Dan's like, don't take my work away. This is union.
No, I don't know. Because there was something that I had talked about in our Patreon minisode.
The Chaser Union.
I
sorry.
am card carrying.
There's something I talked about in Dan and I's Super Chub Life at Home episode that a listener asked for the link to. And it's something that I'm excited to show off on camera because it's fun to see visually.
Okay. Well, if that's not a tease, then I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so teased.
Bit time. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
So since we were talking about heroes of factdom, I figured
Out
I
of
would-
curiosity, we didn't happen to guess any of the ones that you're. Well, keep going. I was like, did we accidentally ruin
He
your
can't
bit?
tell you now anyway.
True.
well, we will see.
I guess we'll find out.
So I have 3 that are about fat heroes from the past, and one that is a fat hero, a fat person that was a hero to some people. So we'll see.
All right.
All right. So the first one. We've covered in the past episodes that American President William Taft likely did not get stuck in his bathtub, although he did have a custom tub installed in the White House. It is true, though, that at 330 pounds, he was most likely our heaviest president to date. Which of the following statements was not true about William Taft?
Okay.
1. Taft was the last president to keep a cow at the White House to provide fresh milk, and her name was Pauline. 2. Taft was the only known president to have TKO'd another president during a boxing match. 3. Taft was the first president to throw the first pitch of a baseball season, beginning a tradition that continues until today. Or 4. Taft is the only former president to swear in an incoming president.
I think pitching the baseball.
Pitching the baseball is not true.
It's either that or the TKO because I think that's true, but it might not have been Taft.
Oh, it's tricky.
What do you
Think
guys
I'm being sneaky.
What do you guys
This
think?
is trickiness.
I'm thinking the baseball one.
Okay.
Okay, we got 1 for baseball.
I'm going to go for baseball as my first instinct.
Got 2 for baseball. Dan?
No one's touching that cow. I think I'm gonna go with the TKO. I think that is not true.
Okay, 1 for TKO, and 2 for baseball. And the correct answer is, in fact, TKO.
Ding ding ding
Damn
ding
it.
ding 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 ding.
I win. I
That's so
win.
close.
All right. Benjamin Franklin was a renowned inventor and idea man in the early United States, most famously as the discoverer of electricity, in quotation marks. Which of the following is he not acknowledged as the creator inventor of? 1,
Silly putty.
1, the long arm, which is the arm extender that Trevor has.
like
near-
the grabber.
Grabber, right? 2, the modern condom.
Oh.
3, the Franklin stove. Or 4, the American political cartoon.
Huh.
I don't
this
think
not-
I don't think he invented the American political cartoon.
I'm thinking condom or cartoon, but cartoon, I feel like, because there's some like super old political cartoons. So I'm going to say political cartoon.
I'm going to say condom.
Condom. All right. The correct answer is, in fact, the modern condom.
Aha! I'm pulling ahead.
Benjamin Franklin is credited with creating the first American political cartoon. There were British ones previously and French ones that inspired him to make the American one.
Is that just like he was on the other side of 1776, so he gets to like there were all these cartoons in America, and then the clock struck midnight on 1776.
Oh, right.
and
Those were all British.
And they're all
then
British, and now this is American.
Yeah.
I'm imagining like he has a little comic strip where it's like basically Charlie Brown, but it's like little Benji Frank. And it's like he's flying a kite.
Flying his kite.
kite,
And he gets electrocuted into like rats.
No, I know he's flying his kite and calling down lightning on the British Army.
You know that crossed someone's mind at some point. All right. Final question. While not a hero in the most common sense of the word, Hilda helped inspire an entire generation of young men, and likely a few women, to enjoy the larger framed lady. Created by illustrator Dwayne Byers, Hilda was a plus-size pinup girl who is definitely not shy about her plump body. One of the more prolific pinup girls of the time, Hilda was featured in American pinup girl calendars from the 1950s all the way to the 1980s. Throughout her entire run, she featured a trait that endeared her to fans. What was that trait?
I know Hilda, so I'm wondering if I'm going to get this.
All right.
Okay. I don't.
So Trevor will be answering after everyone else. Right. 1, she sported enormous hairstyles. 2, she was adorably clumsy. And accident prone. 3, she was one of the few gun-toting mamas of the period. Or 4, leather.
And we're looking for the one that is true.
That is true. Throughout her entire run, she featured a trait that endeared her to fans.
I'm going for either gun or leather because I feel like this sort of typical like man at the time would be into the fat woman who's more like domineering.
Okay.
I'm going with hairstyle.
Okay.
Going with big hair.
Big hair.
I'm going to go with gun because gun is also kind of
Okay.
metaphorical.
We got big hair and we got big guns.
I'm pretty sure it's clumsy because it's not like bumbling, but it's always kind of like oops.
Oh,
And I
okay.
mean, she does have. I don't remember the hair being especially big, and part of me does. I don't remember any other stuff. I kind of feel like maybe there's one where she has a gun, but I don't know if I'm just imagining
I can
that.
get the clumsy.
But it's
as
like clumsy, like
as a way to express-
It's a lot of like cutesy, like oops stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got one for clumsy, one for guns, and one for hairstyles. And the correct answer is, in fact, adorably clumsy and accident.
Yeah.
We need a tiebreaker round for me and Trevor.
And so I will send over a link to Trevor to share this stuff as one of our links. But this is Hilda.
Woo.
Yes.
And there's a large number of these.
Oh boy.
They're very cute. They're very on point for the pinup girls of the time period. But they are also definitely a much more voluptuous and fun sensibility than I got from a lot of them.
She's getting into all kinds of hijinks.
Oh yeah, and there are a lot of these, and like there's even one of here. This surprised me. There's a picture of her in bed with the sheets up around her. It's not especially sexy, but enjoying some crackers in bed.
Yeah. I think a lot of ladies with like tummy trouble appreciate the representation of eating like saltines in bed.
So if you want to share some 50s pinup shots of yourself, where could you do it, Trevor?
Well, it's Yawn and Stretch. Big Stretch. We're on Twitter and Instagram as @BigFatGayPod. On Facebook is Big Fat Gay Podcast. 5 stars there, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
I challenge you to leave us a review right now. Go do it. Go do it.
Okay.
Support us on Patreon if you're not already subscribing, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Well, maybe you are you're eating some crackers in bed as you're listening to this. Your nighttime crackers. Your tummy's a little rumbly. And
Working on my nighties.
and you just got a little smirk on your face, and you're pulling up the sheets over your boobs. Crackers resting on your bosom, and you're drifting off to sleep. So
Watch out.